Hey guys, welcome to our shed build. Today we're going to be doing a cost breakdown for the entire build.
Yep, and welcome. If you are new here, this is our 10 by 14, almost 15-foot tall, 2-story Japanese tea house style shed.
Right, but before we get to that, we have a big question for everybody watching. Is this a $100,000 shed? So we came across a builder at a wedding recently, and he said that for this shed, I showed him photos, he would charge anywhere between $100,000 to $120,000 for a shed just like this.
That's bonkers.
And that's not including, like, there's no drywall, there's no electrical, there's no insulation. He knew that. And he said he would probably be at $120,000 at the end of the day. So I have a question for you. What is it worth to you? If you're a builder, what would you charge to build this in somebody else's property or a woodworker? If you are a homeowner, how much would you pay to have somebody build this for you? And lastly, just for the fun of it, before we get to the cost breakdown, how much do you think it cost us? We'd love to see if we surprise you or not, if we get the numbers right, or if you think we spent a little bit more than we did. Okay, so it's time to get into the cost breakdown.
Okay.
Getting into the costs.
All right, so here we go. Foundation, $102.49, and that involved gravel, the CMU solid blocks, and tie downs.
And the gravel and the blocks were almost the same. The blocks came out to just more than that, but it was essentially 50-50, just a little bit off. But
moving on to a big old category, framing lumber.
Yeah. Framing
lumber, $1,131.82. And that included both pressure-treated and kiln-dried versions of 2x4s, 2x6s, 2x10s, and 2 ridge beams.
Yeah. It was one of our larger costs for this build. I would say, I think the highest cost was the framing lumber, which makes sense because that's what the whole building is made out of. All right, so let's see. The next one was sheet goods, which includes plywood, OSB, sheet goods, not including the siding.
And that is $582.70. That's right. Pressure-treated plywood, 3/4 inch and 1/2 inch.
And OSB. And some of that, if you remember, it should be more than this, but we returned a bunch of that plywood earlier. The 1/2 inch, we ended up swapping it out for more OSB instead and saved a lot of money.
Yep. And because we changed our minds of what we were exactly doing. So there we go.
Right. So then fasteners, which was another big one, which includes fasteners, joist hangers. What is that here? Cut and treat?
Okay, so
we didn't know where to put that.
The cut and treat was kind of its own thing, so I just lumped it in there with that stuff.
And fasteners include screws, nails, all that sort of stuff. So that total is $531.72.
And that's like framing nails, roofing nails, pin nails, brad nails, joist hangers, joist hanger nails.
Which are different.
Yep. Various screws, and then the cut and treat, which is the pressure-treated paint stuff, stain, whatever, that you put at the ends of your pressure-treated boards.
All right, so then we had roofing. What does the roofing include?
The roofing is for both roofs. So both the real roof up there and this like little secondary roof that's mostly decorative. So that's a big whopper of a number. That is $1,197.35 for both.
Right. And quick note of that, the most expensive part by far were the cedar shakes. The cedar shakes were $678.40. They were really expensive, and the thing is, we got those half off. Or no, I'm sorry, a quarter off.
Yeah.
They were a quarter of the price. They were 3/4 off, 75% off.
And the thing here is that the asphalt shingles were $374 plus the tar felt $29.27. That it wasn't part of the original plan. The original plan was to do the whole big upper roof in the cedar shakes, and we realized we did not have enough.
Right.
So that was an extra expense that we weren't expecting.
Oh, this will be enough. It's not enough.
That being said, we have a bunch of extra cedar shakes and shingles, but it just wouldn't have been enough for the whole.
Mostly shingles that we have left over. So just want to note that. So if you were building a shed like this, you would need to multiply the cedar shake portion, that $678, times at least 4 plus tax to get an appropriate.
To build something this size, which is a 10 by 14 shed.
Right. So shakes are very expensive.
2 and 12.
I wasn't kidding when I was like, we could have used slate stone material and it would have cost just the same.
I've been heavy.
So you would have been heavy. Yeah, it would have been heavy.
In addition to the cedar shakes, the asphalt shingles, the tar felt, we also had fascia boards, which we scavenged from boards from somewhere in our house. We just put them somewhere. That was $0. We purchased metal drip edge. We bought window screen to put inside the bird blocks just to keep the bugs out.
Yeah.
And we purchased a ridge vent. Additional things that were involved with this exact project for the roofing, but were already counted otherwise in the prices are...
So those are things, things that we had already purchased and we're using it here. Okay.
Yeah, things like fall under framing lumber, etc. You get the idea. Cedar furring strips, OSB fasteners, framing lumber for the trusses for this small little roof, paint for the trusses, which we already owned. I didn't mention that before, but we used old paint we had, and tung oil. All right, moving on.
On to siding. So siding includes LP Smart Side, house wrap.
I can't read my handwriting.
Fiber cement board, fiber cement corners, and paint. So we already had the paint, we already had the fiber cement boards, we already had the fiber cement corners. So it was really just the LP Smart Side and house wrap. The total was $684.59. The LP Smart Side made up the majority of that at $559. And the house wrap was about $125.
And that was on sale. It was the nicer non-woven house wrap.
It was really nice.
But it was the same price as
right.
woven house.
It was premium stuff. I would use that on a house.
So $684.59. Now, that's a huge chunk of money that we're not saying here because we did the whole backside of the building in fiber cement board.
Right. And if you recall, we also did OSB underneath all the LP Smart Side. So technically, we might have saved some money by going with, what is it, T111? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, T111,
so
but it was
possibly, but it was it would have been really close. The LP Smart Side was like 30 something, $32, but it was like the 4 project board, like it's 4 sheds. It's not structural. And so just something to know that, hey, there's some things
so
you
we've got the shear strength with the OSB, and in the backside we could have just done the T111, but we had the leftover fiber cement board and it had just been sitting in our yard for like 5-6 years, so probably needed to use our stuff.
All right. Next category is just cedar.
Blankets. Blanket statement, cedar.
Right.
Next category is cedar, and this was used for multiple projects. $1,109.48.
Oh, that's a lot of money in cedar.
It is.
But I should say we saved a lot of money by getting cedar fence pickets instead of cedar pre-made smooth boards. The boards were something like, I forget, $8 or $16 a board. And these fence pickets were $3.47 a piece. And so while it's a lot, we saved a lot of money by being able to put those through the planer ourselves and making them look much better.
That being said, we did spent a lot of our own time putting them through the planer and in some cases the router table too.
Right. So it was a lot of time spent getting them ready.
It was nice. I would say the planer was nice. It was loud, but it was nice to just kind of feed those through.
Yeah.
And then the router table required a lot more work. So the cedar was mostly used on the soffit, the trim, the skirt, and the koshi, which is the decorative screen in front of the windows.
And the skirt were the boards that were vertical like this going around the whole building.
And the cedar was partially used on these other things such as the sliding windows, the roof furring strips, and the door.
Right. They weren't entirely made out of cedar, but cedar was used in those.
Yeah. And so we used, like 251 boards of cedar fence pickets?
That's right. 251 cedar fence picket boards.
And all of that cedar came to $963.43.
And then the other part that we had was the tung oil. And the tung oil was $146.05. And that was 2 1 gallons and 1 quart, I think.
Yes, because we started out for the quart.
And then we got smart fast and went over to Amazon.
And we didn't actually end up using the full, second gallon. We still have some in there, but, you bought it anyway.
We used a lot of it.
Yeah, we did. Okay, moving on. Attic ladder.
That's right. It's its own thing.
It's its own thing, kind of like the other stuff. $116.63.
Right. Next one was the windows. So the windows, this is including the fixed and the sliding. And essentially, we already had a lot of that stuff. The cedar was already from the cedar cost. And so really all we had was the plexiglass in this. And that was $165.76. We already had the glass for the fixed windows. So that was our total cost for 7 windows, or 7 sliding portions of windows upstairs for $165.76. I hope that was okay. Let me know what you think, if that was really expensive or not, but we feel like it saved us a little bit of money.
Well, and also we used, we cut down cedar boards to make the cedar stops. So both the frames for the sliding windows and the kind of the rails that they kind of slid in, everything was made out of cedar. All right, moving on. The Soji screen doors, $74.46. And this is something where I'm going to...
That's these.
You're right there. This is something where I am going to mention that we use 9 2x6 kiln-dried boards. And these aren't included in the other framing lumber info because we did this project kind of late.
Right. So this for these doors, I went out and I picked them out from Home Depot. So when you have lumber delivered to you, it's not picked through. You know, they just send you what you have. Sometimes you think they just send you the worst things they have.
Yeah, our delivery was pretty good.
It was,
honestly.
but I've had deliveries before that they send you. I mean, it's really questionable. So I went to the big box store that happens to be orange in this case, I think. And I looked through the 2x6s and I sighted them to make sure that they were straight.
Yep. And so the other thing that we purchased for the doors were these little wheels, these little nylon wheels for $11.58 that go on the bottom to help them roll a little.
And honestly, those are holding up really well, just so you guys know. Like, I didn't think that they would hold up. They were doing great.
Okay. And the other materials that we used on the doors that would have already been mentioned are cedar boards, fasteners, and actually not mentioned, it's a different screen, but the screen on these doors here. My mom had extra screen she was going to use for a project in her house, and she had it. So there we go.
Why not use it?
All right, moving on to the ramp, which is $0.
That's right. It was free. So this ramp that might be a little bit too steep. The ramp here, it's working so far. So we had scraps from the shed cut-offs. We had PT 2x6x10 still that we had cut off still from up above. We had cement bags that had been sitting in our garage for about 2 years. And we had deck screws that we already have included in the cost before. And so the ramp was literally free other than our time to put into it.
I guess, I mean, the fasteners, whatever the fasteners cost, but we weren't going to break that down to find out how much those cost.
I'm sure some people are yelling, but it cost you money at some point. And I'm like, yes, it did. But that money is so far gone that
just forget about
it's now free.
So just declare the ramp free.
Yeah.
And lastly, something that wasn't part of the main building of the shed, but definitely should count because it's for the utility of the shed, are the shelves. And actually the racks that I made to hang all of our implements.
Right. And so that was $37.80. It's all just in 2x4x8s, kiln-dried lumber, nothing fancy. We already had some 2x6s still from the project and from just in our garage. So we used that.
Oh, and we had some OSB that would have been $26.56 additional onto that. But again, we had some just leftover sitting in our garage.
From before the pandemic.
Yeah.
Just FYI, it was $6.
So we were giving you today's pricing for that, but that was way less before. But yeah, we just had that already. And we just had the plywood PT scrap from the floor of the shed we used for a bench top over there.
Right. So anywhere we use scraps, we could. So that.
Oh, and one more thing in there, which I didn't write down here, was I had some conduit that I used for the shovel rack.
Conduit pipe, which is just a metal pipe that's hollow.
Yep, I have used 2 of those.
We usually use that for staking all of our plants and trees across the yard, and so we just have a lot of conduit. If you haven't started using it for planting and staking, like staking your trees, consider it. It's really cheap, it's really strong, and
also good for a tool rack.
Yeah, it turns out you can use it for a tool rack.
All right.
Okay, so subtotal, our grand subtotal here. I'll know this. Okay. Grand subtotal before returns is $6,785.22. That's including tax, everything all in. Returns. So these were things that we didn't use and we were able to return in our 90-day window that we're given, which is $1,250.33. That sounds like a whole lot, but a lot of what we were able to return was sheet goods like the 1/2-inch plywood. I think we were able to even return maybe a couple sheets of the 3/4-inch plywood. And so that adds up fast in that category.
And there's some things that we purchased, like a whole bunch of caulk that we realized that we didn't need. So we just bought it and just straight up returned it.
Right. So that means the grand total was $5,534.89.
And that is awfully close to your guesstimate.
Right. From the get-go, my goal was to have a cost of around $5,500. And we went to $5,534. I am okay with that. I guess I should round to 35, but I am okay with that. That is really close to our original goal. And I feel like the cost is pretty good for what we did. So guys, let us know what you think. Do you think that we spent too much? Are you surprised by that cost? Did we really not spend as much as you thought we would have to make this shed? Just keep in mind, you know, it's a shed with a full attic space above. It's a 10 by 14, and it is 14 feet 11 and 1/2 inches tall, because code here is 15, so we'll stay a little under.
Just give it a little bit. Yeah. Oh, and not to underestimate our time investment there.
Yeah.
So from February to October.
Right. So, I mean, beginning of February, I would say, or at least midway February through the beginning of October. So that's the amount of time, about 8 months, that it took us to build this shed. And I think that's where most of the cost comes out of this. Like when you're trying to decide how much you would charge somebody to do something like this, or how much you would pay for something like this. So let's circle back to the first question I was asking. Now you know the cost, you know what it costs us to build this. What would you pay to have this shed in your yard or something similar? As a builder, what would you charge to put this in somebody's yard to build it for them?
And I'm sure like it would take people different amount of time.
Oh yeah.
We were filming during this whole time, and it's kind of hard to like judge how much time filming took.
Right. And we had
Delayed
projects, and we had, I mean, we have work, we have things, you know, things
jobs,
come up,
you know.
family. We weren't here 100% of the time.
But
doing
that's
all
like
that.
everybody, if they were doing this in their like spare time.
Right. Everybody has that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. And with that, that's the video. That's all we have on costs.
Yep. And we're really excited to share this information with you. I know a lot of videos don't share a cost breakdown, and I know I would always appreciate it when I see other people's builds.
Right. So we thought we'd share it with you. If you've enjoyed this video or appreciate it, please be sure to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with somebody. That's how our videos get seen by other people. It's what makes the algorithm work for us. So please be sure to do it. Like, subscribe, and you can even hit that bell. All right. Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.
Bye.